So yes, if you remember, we were doing this thing where I tried to get everywhere using just 3 parts. So, what I want to do, I guess, is get into low Duna orbit, and then we'll rendezvous there, and then we'll try and land. Hey ho, ho ho. And then we'll make the relevant corrections to the orbit 8. Okay, that's interesting. The ascending node is not changing very much. Whatever, let's just go for it. So, right click, how is everybody? We're going to warp to the next maneuver, and then we are going to burn ourselves out of here, of course. We are continuing from last week. This is going to be a grand undertaking, a long process. Jebediah Kerbin has everywhere. He is going everywhere. He's doing everything because he's Jebediah. So we're going to refuel in low Duna orbit. Land on Duna. Possibly refuel on Duna. And then we'll go to Dres next. I think Dres is the obvious place. So I can only use... No, here's the thing. The spacecraft is only 3 parts. We have a capsule, we have a fuel tank, and we have this tiny engine in the bottom. And, yeah, this is going to be fine. So I can only use 3 parts. 139 meters per second, and it tells me that it thinks I have... Why doesn't it tell me my total... delta V is 1200. So I could almost land with that thing. Have I tried to create Falcon 9 launch before with landing on a drone ship with no autosave? I've not done that. No, I had to use saves. Let's put it that way. To about 100 kilometers. Okay, that'll do. So let's head out to the sphere of influence. Say farewell, Ike. Farewell, Ike. No, I mean, say farewell to Ike. Ike. What are you talking about? Add a Kerbal and an infinitely fueled KMU pack. Yeah, I'm hoping I won't have to use that very often. Technically, I could have probably got an Ascent path which didn't need it, but it was just kind of convenient. So I'm trying to just get into the same plane as the depot so I can refuel. Now, actually, I mean, I have about... I may have enough delta V to actually land this. I've got about 1 kilometer per second of delta V. And maybe I should do like an Alt F5 save Duna no refuel. Actually, I should probably refuel in orbit. I think that's probably best. If I can land it, and then that means I don't have to worry about driving a lander across the surface. That's the thing that I really want to avoid doing. So I'm going to try refueling in orbit first. Retrograde relative to the target, moving in at 7 meters per second. Okay, now let's aim towards the target. But the Jet Propulsion Laboratory would like to see more of you. You know what? I think I've shown everything I can at JPL. How was the Candy Hall in the Bay Area? Well, spectacular, I think, is the word we're looking for here. Like, more than anybody could reasonably have ever. Evercast says he finally gotten home from work in time to see you live or live. Maybe you think that I'm dead because it is Halloween. Maybe you're like, oh wait, I thought that Scott would be among the undead for All Hallows evening, but no, he is still alive. Have they determined if the comet is on a hyperbolic? No, there is absolutely no doubt about it. C2017 U1 Pan-STARRS is absolutely on a hyperbolic orbit with an eccentricity of about 1.19. It is an interloper in the solar system. It will pass through and head back into interstellar space, never to be seen again unless we send a spacecraft after it. Also, because it is confirmed to be interstellar, it is entirely possible that this object is actually, well, it's out from outside the solar system, which means it formed at a different time than the solar system, right? Okay, so next, now we gotta decide to land on this. Yeah, so it's entirely possible that that comet is actually older than our solar system, right? Because if you think about it, the sun is about 5 billion years old. The universe is about 12 billion years old, right? So there's like 7 billion years potentially for things in there. Now, to be fair, to make heavy elements and stuff that's required to make planets and stuff, you still need a bit of time before that, because the galaxies have to form, you have to have complete stellar life cycles, the material has to get distributed. But there's plenty of wiggle room in there to have this comet be older than the solar system, right? I mean, isn't that like, holy moly, isn't that amazing? Is it going so past that even a flyby? So Zlorishin is basically asking, could we get any sort of spacecraft out to it? And no, right now, it is essentially moving away from the solar system. And when it gets to infinity, it'll be moving about 26 kilometers per second. So that's the minimum amount of velocity you need. But in fact, you need more than that, right? So you need a fair chunk of velocity over escape's velocity to be able to catch up on this thing. Having said that, we will know where this thing is for centuries. It's going to get too faint because it's relatively small. It's not very reflective. We're not sure the albedo, but it's definitely fading very quickly. So we will lose sight of it, but we will know roughly which part of the sky it's in. And if we invent, some sort of new spacecraft, some sort of new space drive that lets us get, say, 100 kilometers per second of delta V, then, yeah, that would be a really interesting target, right? Okay, Periapsis is now inside the planet. So now I just need to figure out when to land it. So that means I need to watch my suicide burn here. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, like, during well, basically since Galileo, the goalposts on the existence of God have been steadily moved in the direction of science to basically allow God in the gaps, right? Which is cool. And it's like, hey, well, now that we understand this, we don't need, divine influence to explain how the planets move around the sun. And that means it's cool because now we've understood how God put together the universe. And it's only recently that, you've had this crazy, strict interpretation which has suddenly decided, no, we don't want to give up any of that. We want to reclaim that lost ground to science. We want to have flat Earth because, hey, it says, if you read some parts of the Bible, it could suggest that. And that is really not a good use of your time. Smart people there are many smart people that are religious, and they're not the ones arguing for a flat Earth, put it that way. So anyway, here we go, we're getting lower. So what's my current altitude? 4 kilometers. It says my suicide burn is about 700 meters. I'm going to start burning now. Let's see how that goes. Okay, so now I did that just about right. So now I just need to land this sucker. Where's my shadow though? I'm looking for a shadow. I'm losing all my reference points here. This is part... Oh. Oh. Okay, that's good. We got it. We got it landed. Woohoo! Okay! Seriously, that could be bad news. How much delta V do I have? It says 26,500, so I should have more than enough. Again, F5 here, and we're going to start heading back into orbit, right? Okay, so let's boost ourselves into orbit, circularize, and then we'll rendezvous with our friend in higher orbit. Or maybe it should rendezvous with me. So this could be the next one. I know, I am really like, I clearly it is a strange chat. Yes, we've successfully chatted about politics and religion. You know, as I said, I prefer to come from a point where people agree on things and then try to, you know. Target is 11 meters per second. Okay, there we go. So, you know, like, let's just try and keep it civil. Remember that ultimately we all want the world to be an amazing place for everybody, right? That's what I say. Yeah, you gotta literally, yeah. You don't have to agree on everything, but you have to agree that on things like on sane things, let's say. Oh, Christ, Skulker is telling me that he's pursuing engineering in part because of occasionally seeing me pretend to be an engineer. Let's be clear, I am not an engineer. I merely play one on the internet. So we figured out that the capsule docking is the most reliable way to do it, right? I think the claw hits like, you know, vertices or something, and so there's more vertices in a capsule, so it connects to it much more easily. Right, here we go, and liquid oxidizer in. The US basically had its whole independence thing after the French, but more, you know, the French. There was a guy, the Marquis de Concordat. He basically studied, you know, election mechanics and came up with the best way to do all these things. And yeah, apparently that information never got to anybody that was defining new republics. As thoughts on CCP and VR, yeah, that is a real blow to VR because CCP had gone all in, and you know, it is also a shame to see that CCP is kind of stepping back again. They've got it. I find it. I feel sad that CCP has never really managed to make a viable sequel to EVE Online, if you know what I mean. A viable thing set within this universe. You know, they've got so much, and it just never seems to be. They never seem to get anywhere. Seems to me that they should create a war game, like an RTS or something. And that would be the most logical thing to do with their assets. I mean, the way that EVE Online works is essentially a real-time strategy game where every player is one unit. Yeah, you know, back in the 80s, they were talking about you know, photon computers. They're saying, you know, at some point we're going to make photon computers because electrons just don't move fast enough. And if you really want to have a fast processor, you got to have, you know, photons so that you can send the data at the speed of light and process at the speed of light. But you know what? Moore's law said, you know what? We could just make things 10 times closer together. While you guys are trying to build your like photonic gates, we'll just make things 10 times, 100 times. Like, yeah, Moore's law totally made photon computers completely pointless. Yeah, it's gonna appear anti-radial. Does anyone see it? Oh, there it is, there it is, there's it! Oh, quick. Retrograde. And engine F5 probably. Okay, now we get an apoapsis. That's great, and so we can make our inclination correction because we want to rendezvous with this. Yeah, I don't remember the exact details. Anyway, so in the old days, phones used to have all this signaling in band, and this particularly with payphones, you could actually go in and play the right tones down the handset after you picked it up and get free phone calls, right? That's kind of part of the origin of the phone freaking thing, was because, hey, we could get free phone calls by doing this. payphones eventually got smart enough, got fixed, so that they sent the signaling out of band. That is, they used a separate thing. They wouldn't connect the mouthpiece until the connection was established. Now, there's another very famous example of in-band signaling, which you're probably aware of, and that is the Quindar tones that are on the Apollo missions, right? So Quindar tones are the beeps that are heard when mission control is talking to the astronauts. And that is essentially, they wanted to rent, they had these leased lines, right, that would connect them to their various, facilities. And having multiple of these was expensive. So they used a single line, and then they used this, oh, shoot. Now I'm only going 6 meters per second. So, yeah, they would have the mission control connection, say to, I don't know, whatever, to Australia. They would have a permanent leased line running, and the telemetry would run across this. But when they wanted to send signals, they would play these Quindar tones to say, okay, somebody wants to speak, and go beep. And then at the end of the message, it would play a slightly different beep that would switch the thing back over to telemetry. So, yeah, that's another example of in-band signaling, and you can hear it on all the tapes. And of course, that shouldn't exist in any modern communication system because nobody has the need. All digital communication systems are smart enough to be able to multiplex all the different data streams without having to play these silly beeps. And you still hear them in movies and TV shows where there's astronauts. As I said, I recommend watching Sneakers. Yes, C-Tech is strong. And that's the other thing that's awesome about Sneakers, is that the gizmo that they're all after is basically a device which factors numbers really, really fast. And that's like such an obscure reference that only a computer security person would understand why it would be a truly awesome gizmo. Of course, the way that they use it by plugging into the network and decrypting everything doesn't really make sense, because most of the systems used at that time weren't using, Diffie-Hellman style key exchange or public key or whatever. I wonder if I can land it right on this white area here. How close do you think I am? Is that even flat enough to land on? It's probably not. I think it might be, actually. Yeah, I'm totally going to try landing on this. Yeah, we're going to land on the white area because it's high. And we've landed. Let's turn off stability control. F5. EVA. Dres. It's boring. More interesting than swordfish. Beats by Dres. Yes. Okay, let's do this. So now the next thing is I want to rendezvous with my target here. By the way, we are working on a t-shirt. A number of people have asked me, would I do like a shirt design? And we think we have a design. It's check your staging. We got some cool stuff. Do I play Digital Combat Simulator? I have a confession to make that I've bought a ton of stuff in DCS and never spent any significant time on it. It won't let me go more than 100 times at time acceleration. So this is when I need to go back to the tracking station and do things faster there. What was the one that remembered pointing out that they had Windows CE, ME, and NT, and when you put them all together, you get Windows Cement.